Well, first, I'd like to start by saying how important athletics is to the entire university. We know that having great sports programs at a university uh, provides benefits far beyond the court or the field or the pool. Athletics for our student athletes and for the community is an integral part of our strategic plan going forward. And what a great season we had last year. So much momentum going into this and a lot to build on. So we knew it was important to find the right leader to maintain the momentum, but also to even move our program and our university to greater heights. We're thrilled today to announce that Scott Larson, a seasoned athletic administrator, is coming on as our vice president for athletics. And let me just say that we elevated the director of athletics role to a VP role for a number of reasons. Number one, what we do know is this person has to be an equal among all of the executives on my team. And every executive on my team is interested not only in the role that they play in their specific function, but also to make sure that the entire university is connected with what we need to do to get better. Excellence is what we're chasing here. And we have a lot to be proud of, and we have a lot more to do to get to where we need to go. Scott has 2 decades of NCAA experience in lots of different roles in athletics. For the last 5 years, he's had the top spot, the athletic director, both at Lubbock Christian and also Black Hills State. So we know he has a depth of experience to bring to the table and lots of really amazing accomplishments during that 20 years, but particularly over the past 5 years. We're thrilled at what he's been able to oversee in his roles. Lots of winning in his programs, but also, as I said before, the experience of a manager and an executive to be able to run and manage the overall aspects of running athletics, and also being a part of the executive team, working with the coaches, also experience in going out and bringing in external dollars that we need to help with scholarships and capital improvements and all the things that we'll need going forward. So I'm thrilled that today to announce that Scott Larson is our new VP, and I'm happy to bring him on board. So Scott, I'm going to leave it to you.
All right, well, thank you, Dr. Woodley. I think seasoned is probably synonymous for old. That's what I took out of that. But thank you for that introduction. I'm definitely excited to be here and ready to work with this great staff, these great coaches, some that have been around for a while and others that are day one, just like myself, Coach Phillips, in the baseball program. So, athletics on this campus is only about 30 years old. It's relatively new, and just the amount of success that's been able to be obtained, especially of late, has been truly remarkable. Before I move on, just a couple of thank yous. First of all, to my family who couldn't be here. They're back in, 2/3 of them are back in Lubbock. My wife, who teaches 5th grade, and with the timing of everything, couldn't come down. Our older son, who is 18, about ready to start college up there in Lubbock this fall as well. And then our younger son, who, in a shock to our family, he was attending Friendship High School, but came down and toured Midland Christian and fell in love with the place. So he started school last Wednesday at Midland Christian as well. So that sort of expedited our timeline a little bit as far as coming down. Then also my parents, who also made the drive down from Lubbock today as well, sitting in the back. So thank you all for doing that. As we look forward and what can best be described as a crazy time in college athletics, I think the priority is we have to position ourselves for what's next, whatever that may be. We've seen a lot of changes over the past few years with the NIL, transfer portal, all those kinds of things, and then just internally taking care of ourselves in terms of facilities and scholarships, like Dr. Woodley mentioned. On a side note, I sat through new employee orientation this morning, and we better get to work on facilities given the campus beautification and things that are coming forward, so we don't get left behind in that front as well. Wins and losses, they're important, but they're not the most important thing that we do. The most important thing we do is impact the lives of student athletes for their 3, 4, 5 with COVID, 6, 7, 8 years, however it is, long it is that we're here. It's our job to push them academically, athletically, and to make them, help them to transition to adulthood and become productive members of society. People often ask me, how do you measure the success of an athletic department? There's the obvious metrics, wins and losses, GPAs, graduation rates, those kinds of things. But for me, it's much more of a long-term measure. It's, how good fathers, good mothers, good husbands, wives? Are they productive members of the communities in which they live? I always love getting the birth announcements, wedding announcements from student athletes for 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so to me, that's how you really measure the success of an athletic department is the success of those student athletes that come out of your program. So in short, we're going to hold our student athletes accountable, but we're also going to give them the best experience that we possibly can, both on and off the playing surface. And so I think it's important for all of us to realize, we're not just rolling out balls and playing games and practicing. What we do matters. The stuff on the court is really just a small part of what we do. So that's what I got.
Coach, you talked about not coach.
That's all right. I've been called worse. It's okay.
You talked about facilities. It feels like a stadium has been an ongoing conversation for several years. Is that something that you plan to focus on?
Yeah, I think all facilities, not just on-campus football. I mean, you look at baseball, softball, tennis. I'm probably missing one, and I apologize if I am. But, I mean, all of them need work to come up to Lone Star standard. You look at the Lone Star Conference, it's arguably the best Division II conference in the country on a lot of different levels. And so UTPB has proven with the Learfield success last year with the facility to just imagine what can happen with improved facilities. So, yeah, I mean, that's priority one. I think scholarships are 1A. So.
What is your plan to make sure student athletes maximize their performance both on the field and off the field?
Well, I think it's just setting a standard. When you set a standard, people tend to meet that standard. And I know the coaches here have set a high standard. You look at obviously the athletic performance, the academic performance. And so you meet a standard, let's ratchet it up a little bit. Let's try and get a little bit better every day. Coach said, every day, let's get a little bit better. 1% every day. Let's get better.
Scott, when we talked about facilities and everything, what else do you think will be a big challenge for you at this new job?
Well, I think, it's challenge is a negative word. Opportunity is probably a better word that I like to use. But yeah, facilities and scholarship piece, getting our sports fully funded. You look across the Lone Star. Again, it's one of the top conferences in the country. A lot of those schools are fully funded across all sports. And so we want to give our student athletes the opportunity to be competitive. Let's be honest. Winning is fun. I mean, it's not at all costs, but winning is fun. And that leads to a good experience.
Where does the funding come from?
Well, I think we're going to have to look at external sources. We're going to have to endow some scholarships, things like that, and develop the mission and vision and sell that. Hey, this is where we're going. Come on, be a part of it. Join us.
Scott, you've been in West Texas a lot. You obviously went up to South Dakota for a year, but had a lot of success in Lubbock. So how's it feel to be back in West Texas?
Well, it's great. My family actually never left. We had, long story short, but we had a death in the family, a health emergency in the family, so they never left. But it's great to be back in West Texas. Sweet tea, I did miss that. My waistline did not, but missed sweet tea. But the people make all the difference. You look at the success at Lubbock Christian. That wasn't me. That was the coaches and staff, and they bought in to the mission and vision of the institution, the athletic department, and really went for it. And so that's the same thing we've got to do here.
And you were talking about a lot of recent success, but obviously with Coach McCullough, the first Lone Star Conference championship in the program's history, a lot more, the baseball team making the national tournament as well. So you come from Lubbock Christian where you oversaw a lot of championship appearances. So how do you hope to bring that experience over to UTPB to continue that?
Well, I think it's the people. Like I said, you look at Lubbock Christian, you look at budgets and all that. They're nowhere near the top of the Lone Star Conference. I mean, you look at the success that LCU had against, say, West Texas A&M. The budget discrepancies were big, but for whatever reason, Lubbock Christian had a lot of success against WT across all sports, and it really comes down to the people. Recruiting the right student athletes, buying in, having student athletes buy in, and being successful. And once you can do that, it just snowballs and goes from there.
What are some of the goals that you have for this upcoming year? I know you just got here. There's a lot of things that you want to work on to actually improve and lift up this organization, but it will take some time. So what are some of the small goals you plan on?
Well, I think first of all is learning everybody's name. That's number one. But no, I mean, getting out there, meeting with all of our coaches and staff, meeting with our student athletes, meeting with all of our constituents, donors, supporters in the community, local folks that play a big role, and talking about UTPB, talking about UTPB athletics, talking about the success we've had, what we think it can be, and getting everybody bought in and moving in the same direction.
You've had experience across the Lone Star Conference, of course. Can you talk about what that was that attracted you to another position within the conference?
Well, the Lone Star Conference specifically, really enjoyed my time in the league. Commissioner Jay Perner, consider him a friend. It was great to work for. He was one of the first ones to text me this morning when the release came out. But, and just the camaraderie among the athletic directors in the league. There's been a lot of turnover among the athletic directors in the league over the last 12 months or so, but just having those relationships, knowing how, collegial everybody is, the camaraderie, there's really not a lot of, everybody gets along really well, and wants the Lone Star to be successful across the board. And I just really believe in the Lone Star Conference, and West Texas is, became home for us. Our kids grew up in West Texas, and, we have, another one that's starting college and one that's going to high school down here. And so it's become home for us, and the people in West Texas are really great.
And in those many national championship appearances that you oversaw at Lubbock Christian, I believe there were 3 for women's basketball that ended up as championships.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the women's basketball team here did very well last year
Yep.
as well. So, what is it about women's basketball for you?
Well, I think the quality of high school women's basketball in West Texas is phenomenal. I know Coach Gomez, he recruited, I'd probably say 95% of his team within a 2 to 3 hour radius of Lubbock. And so I think that's a product of it. High school basketball in West Texas is really outstanding. You look at the state tournament, most of the schools that are there come from west of I-35. And so I think that's part of it, but also, again, it's just developing that culture that in that case, young women want to be a part of, and all that. And that's what you got to do across all sports.
No, day one. Just went through initiation.
I did.
Do you have any insight on maybe some new business opportunities or opportunities with the community that you've already thought of?
Yeah, I think, we have to see what's here and what's already in place. But again, it's just getting out there as much as possible. Promoting the mission, vision. One thing at LCU, and I've heard that it's sort of the same way here, getting people to campus. They don't know what's here. They don't know, they haven't met coaches. They haven't met student athletes. And once they do, it's a game changer. People, you talk about fun, at Lubbock Christian, Texas Tech was 2.5 miles down the road, 3.5 miles down the road. And so, we tried to turn that situation on its head where, when you talk about external sources, it can make a smaller amount can make a much bigger difference at a level like this. You actually get to know the coaches, you get to know the student athletes. You can actually see the difference that your resources are making in the lives of student athletes and coaches. And so I think that's the important thing, is really getting out there and letting people know that how much of a difference they can have.
How does that take to build that up? Because obviously you can't just flip the switch and be like, hey, everyone's going to start coming and visiting our school now. So
No.
How long does that take?
Well, I think it's a process. One thing at LCU that I literally did, just started cold calling and cold emailing businesses and saying, hey, we're here. We'd love to build some partnerships with folks in the community, business in the community. Let's have a meeting. And, a number of people bit, made sure we met on campus, got in the golf cart, drove around. People were like, wow, we had no idea this was back here. This is awesome. How do we become a part? And so I think it just kind of snowballed. People talk to each other. You have the Chamber of Commerce, all those folks talk to you. Hey, we just got involved with UTPB, why don't you come along and all, and it's stuff like putting stickers in businesses' windows, putting flying flags on important days with graduation or football playoff games or whatever the case may be. Just getting people to promote it, getting the logo out there, getting the name out there, and letting people know how successful we have been and how successful we think we can be.